The woman on the platform was bleeding through her dress, and no one looked away. Caleb Morrow sat astride his bay mare at the edge of the crowd, jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. February wind cut through the town square, but 40-some people stood packed around the auction block like it was a Sunday social. The woman swayed on her feet, clutching a bundle wrapped in thin muslin. A newborn. Couldn't be more than hours old. The auctioneer Harvey Potts, fat and self-important, cleared his throat. As I was saying, estate of the late Benjamin Hayes owes $340 in outstanding debts. His widow here ain't got 2 coins to rub together, so we're offering her labor contract. 5-year term. Buyer gets a housekeeper, cook, whatever work needs doing. Whatever work. Caleb's stomach turned. 3 men stepped forward. Jim Farley from the saloon, eyes crawling over her like she was livestock. Mine foreman Dutch Corrigan, chewing tobacco and grinning. And Samuel Booker, the creditor himself, thin as a whip and twice as mean. $50. Farley started. 75. Booker countered. Smirking, the woman didn't raise her head. Blood had soaked through the back of her skirt, a dark stain spreading. She'd given birth standing, maybe in a wagon, maybe alone. The baby let out a thin cry that the wind nearly stole. Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. His mare shifted, sensing his tension. 100, Corrigan called, laughing. Hell, she's young enough. Still got some use in her, the crowd murmured, some disapproving, most just curious. No one moved to stop it. No one ever did. Caleb saw the worn gold band on the woman's finger. Same kind he wore, Sarah's ring. Still on his own hand 3 years after she'd stopped breathing. 120, Booker said, confident now. The woman's knees buckled slightly. She caught herself, adjusted the baby. Her lips moved prayer, maybe, or goodbye. $500 cash. The words left Caleb's mouth before he'd decided to speak them. The crowd went silent. Heads turned. Even the auctioneer blinked. Did you say wire $500 in cash right now? Booker's face went purple. You can't, I just did. Caleb dismounted, boots hitting mud with a squelch. He walked through the parted crowd, pulled a leather pouch from his coat, counted out bills onto the auctioneer's table. That square-ass Potts fumbled with the money, nodded. Caleb turned to the woman. Up close. She was younger than he'd thought, mid-20s. Maybe. Dark hair plastered to her face with sweat, eyes gray as storm clouds, watching him with the wariness of a cornered animal. He unbuttoned his sheepskin coat, draped it over her shoulders. It swallowed her frame. You're done here, he said quietly. Come with me. Her voice came out barely a whisper. What do you want from me? Caleb met her eyes. Nothing you ain't willing to give. He helped her down from the platform. She moved stiffly. Every step agony. The baby whimpered against her chest. Moses, his foreman, had brought the wagon around the old man's dark eyes unreadable beneath his hat brim. Caleb lifted her into the wagon bed, made sure she was settled on the blanket Moses had laid out. She clutched the baby like someone might tear it away. Boss, Moses said low. You sure about this? Caleb pulled himself into the saddle. More sure than I've been in years. Behind them. The crowd whispered. Booker spat in the dirt, but said nothing. Caleb didn't look back at the town. He hadn't looked back in 3 years. Until now. The cabin sat like a gravestone on the hill. 8 miles outside town, the ranch spread across good grazing land creek-fed, sheltered by pines on the north side. The main house was solid stone and timber, 2 stories, smoke curling from the chimney. 50 yards away, the small cabin crouched in shadow. Moses drove the wagon up the rutted path as dusk settled. Snow had started falling, fat flakes drifting down like ash. Caleb rode alongside, silent as he'd been the whole journey. The woman he didn't even know her name yet hadn't spoken either. Just held that baby and stared at nothing. They stopped between the buildings. Moses unhitched the horses without a word, led them toward the barn. Caleb dismounted, tied his mare to the porch rail. "This way," he said. She climbed down slowly, wincing with each movement. Caleb reached to help. She pulled back. Pride. Even now, he respected that. Led her to the cabin door instead. Pushed it open. The interior was dark, dusty. He lit the oil lamp on the table. Warm light spread across simple furniture: a bed, a rocking chair, a cold fireplace. And in the corner, a cradle. Handmade pine. Sanded smooth. Empty. The woman's gaze fixed on it. Her arms tightened around the baby. "Who lived here?" she asked. Caleb's throat closed. "Someone I couldn't save." He turned fast, walked back outside, couldn't breathe in there. Not with that cradle staring at him like an accusation. Moses was already returning with supplies: firewood stacked on a canvas tarp, blankets, a burlap sack. Caleb took the load, carried it inside. The woman sat in the rocker now, nursing the baby beneath his coat. She looked small, breakable. He knelt at the hearth, arranged kindling, struck a match. The fire caught, crackling to life. Heat began to push back the cold. He added larger pieces, watched until the flames were steady. "I'll bring breakfast at dawn," he said. Standing. Couldn't quite cross that threshold again. "Lock the door. Men don't spend $500 for nothing." Her voice was stronger now. Caleb paused, half-turned. Studied the floorboards. "I spent it so you'd owe nothing. Big difference." He closed the door behind him, stood there in the snow, listening to the bolt slide home. Good. She should lock it. Trust was earned, not bought. Moses waited by the main house, arms crossed. "You gonna tell me what you're doing? Helping someone?" "By bringing her to Sarah's cabin, boss. I know what it is." Caleb walked past him, into the house. Poured whiskey he wouldn't drink. Stared out the window at the lamplight glowing in the cabin. Outside, he heard the bolt slide back. Then nothing. She'd unlocked it. Testing him. Maybe. Or testing herself whether she could trust her instincts again. The baby's cry drifted across the yard, thin and lonesome. Caleb closed his eyes. Remembered another cry, 3 years back. Weaker each hour until it wasn't there at all. He opened his eyes. The cabin door stayed closed. The woman stayed inside. Safe for one more night. It would have to be enough. The third night. The fire went out. Caleb woke to Moses pounding on his bedroom door. "Boss, cabin chimney ain't smoking." He was out of bed, pulling on boots, no coat, no thought beyond get there. The blizzard had hit after midnight wind howling like wolves. Snow already knee-deep. He crashed through drifts, couldn't see 3 feet ahead. The cabin was dark. Smoke wasn't rising. It was backing up, seeping through the chinking between logs. Faulty flue. Ice blockage. Damn it, he should have checked. He hit the door with his shoulder. Snow had drifted against it, held it shut. He kicked. Through his weight. Wood splintered. He tumbled inside. Cold. Dear God. The cold. The woman was on the floor, wrapped in every blanket, the baby tucked inside her dress against her skin, both shaking. The baby's lips were blue. Caleb didn't remember lifting them, didn't remember the walk back through the storm, but suddenly he was in his house, Moses stoking the fire to an inferno, and Caleb was peeling away wet blankets with numb fingers. "Get the bed warmed," Moses ordered. "I'll boil water." Caleb carried them to the guest room, laid them on quilts Moses had heated by the fire, stripped away the frozen layers, wrapped the baby skin to skin against the woman's chest, covered both in dry blankets, rubbed the woman's hands ice cold. No response. Then her feet, her arms. "Come on!" he muttered. "Come on! Breathe! Just breathe!" Her body convulsed. Violent shivering, the best sign, meant she wasn't too far gone. The baby squalled. Angry and alive, Moses pressed a warm cloth to the infant's head. Checked her color. "Baby's gonna make it," Moses said. "Her mama, too, if we're lucky." Caleb kept rubbing her hands. 30 more minutes. They'd be gone. He said it to her sleeping face. To the woman who'd bled on an auction block and still had the strength to unbolt a door in trust. "Not on my watch. Not again." Dawn light crept through the window. Caleb woke in the chair beside the bed. Neck stiff. The woman's eyes were open, staring at him. Clear gray, no longer clouded with cold. "Where am I?" Her voice rasped. "My house. Guest room. Chimney failed. Moses and I." He stopped, gestured to the baby sleeping beside her. "You're safe now." She looked around slowly. Her gaze caught on the portrait above the dresser. A young woman holding a baby blanket. Name engraved on the frame, Sarah Morrow. 1859-1884. The woman's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, understanding lived there. "You're building me a grave gift," she whispered. Caleb stood. Couldn't meet her gaze. "Cabin'll be fixed by week's end. You'll stay here till then." He left before she could answer. But he heard her words, soft as snow falling. "Thank you." Mr. Morrow. No one had called him that in 3 years. He'd forgotten how names could sound like hope. She moved through his house like wind through wheat, gentle but reshaping everything. 3 weeks passed. March arrived with mud and melting snow. The cabin stood repaired, new flue. Chinked walls, fresh whitewash. Livable. But Eliza Hayes, he'd learned her name the second day, stayed in the main house. "Till you're stronger." Caleb had said, "Till spring." She'd answered. Both knew it was more than that. Mornings found her at the stove, cooking breakfast before he woke. Not obligation pride. She wouldn't take without giving. He understood that language, so he taught her to mend harness leather, to read weather in the sky. Moses taught her to shoot. In case coyotes came prowling, the baby she'd named her Emma. After no one Caleb knew grew fat and happy, rolled over now, smiled at everything. Moses carved her toys from scrap wood, whistled while he worked. Caleb caught himself laughing at supper one night. The sound startled him. Moses noticed. Said nothing, but his eyes crinkled at the corners. Eliza hummed while she worked. The same lullaby Sarah used to sing. The first time Caleb heard it, he'd frozen in the doorway, hand on the frame. Couldn't move. But he didn't flee. He leaned into the memory instead, let it wash over him like creek water. Cold, but clean. "My mama sang that," Eliza said, noticing him. "Hers before her?" "My wife sang it too." She nodded, kept humming, didn't apologize, didn't stop. Just let the song fill the space between grief and whatever came after. The cabin's last repair was the door. Caleb planed it himself, fitted new hinges. Eliza insisted on helping, held the frame steady while he worked. Her hands bled from splinters. He saw. Stopped mid-swing. Set down the hammer. Took her hands in his rough carpenter's palms against her raw skin. Tore a strip from his own shirt sleeve. Wrapped her fingers without speaking. Their eyes met. Held. First real vulnerability either had risked. "Why did you bid?" she asked quietly. Caleb didn't look away. "Someone should have helped you before it came to that. You can't save everyone. I can save you." The words hung in the air like pipe smoke. Eliza pulled her hands back gently, tucked them against her apron. "The door's ready," she said. "We should hang it." They worked in silence. But when his shoulder brushed hers, reaching for a nail, neither moved away. That night, Moses rode to town for supplies, Returned troubled. Found Caleb in the barn, measuring oats. Shopkeeper's wife was talking. Moses said carefully. Called Miss Hayes. Called her a name I won't repeat. Caleb's hand stilled on the scoop. What else? Said you bought yourself a mistress. That the baby ain't yours, but you're playing house anyway. Moses spat into the straw. I told her to mind her Christian tongue. Won't matter. Talk spreads like brush fire. Want me to know? Caleb set down the scoop. Let them talk. We know the truth. But his gut twisted. Small towns had long memories and sharp teeth. He'd forgotten that. Living out here alone. Forgotten how quickly mercy could look like sin. The man in black rode up the hill like Judgment Day. Eliza saw him first Sunday afternoon. Sky clear and cold. She was hanging laundry. Emma asleep in a basket by her feet. The rider came slow. Deliberate. Black coat, black hat, preacher Josiah Kane. She recognized him from town. He'd stood silent at the auction. Watching. Mr. Morrow, she called. Caleb emerged from the barn, wiping grease from his hands. Saw the rider. Went still. Moses drifted closer, rifle loose in his grip but present. Preacher Kane dismounted at the porch. Didn't smile. Morrow. Preacher, what brings you out? Congregation's concerned. Kane's voice was dry as old paper. Woman living under your roof, unwed, baby that ain't yours, looks improper. Caleb's jaw set. She's my guest, my business. Morality is God's business. I'm his messenger. Eliza's hands twisted in the wet sheet. She wanted to run inside, hide like she'd been taught. But something Moses once said echoed, you stood on that block without breaking. Don't start now. She stepped forward, Emma on her hip. Preacher Kane. He turned to her, expression softening slightly. Sister Hayes, I need to know, are you here willingly? More willingly than on that auction block, your congregation. Watched. His face reddened. We're a godly town. Godly towns don't sell women. Her voice didn't shake. They don't bid on mothers still bleeding. They don't stand silent while men offer money for... She stopped. Throat tight. Mr. Morrow saved my life. If your God has issue with that, I'll answer to him directly. Kane's mouth opened. Closed. He looked at Caleb. Legitimize this arrangement or face consequences. Church has sway with the territorial judge. We can take that child, put her in a proper home. Caleb took one step forward. Moses raised the rifle slightly. You threatened to take that baby, preacher. You'll answer to more than God. Kane mounted his horse, settled his hat. I'll be praying for all of you. Hope you'll do the same. He rode off down the hill. The three of them stood silent until the hoofbeats faded. He ain't bluffing, Moses said quietly. Booker's on the church council. He'll push for this. Let him try. Eliza's voice came out small. I'll leave before you lose everything. Caleb turned to her. Where would you go? Anywhere but between you and your peace. You are my peace. The words broke something open. He pulled her close, careful of Emma between them, and kissed her. Desperate and brief, like a man drowning and finding air. Eliza pulled back, eyes wide, shaking her head. Don't make promises you'll break when the town turns. She walked to the cabin, shut the door. Caleb stood frozen in the yard, Moses beside him. Boss, the old man said gently. Loving someone means standing in front of the whole world and saying so. Caleb stared at the closed door. I know. Then you better decide if she's worth the fight. She is. Then prove it. He sat in the back pew like a man awaiting execution. Sunday morning. Church packed seemed like everyone in 3 counties had come. Word traveled fast. The rancher and his arrangement were better than a theater show. Caleb's collar choked him. He'd worn his one good suit, hat in his lap, alone. Moses and Eliza had stayed at the ranch. She'd wanted to come, stand beside him. He'd refused. Not yet, he'd said. Let me handle this first. Coward's logic. He knew it even then. Preacher Cain droned through the sermon something about righteousness. Wolves in sheep's clothing. Caleb barely heard. His pulse hammered in his ears. After the final hymn. Cain gestured to Samuel Booker. The creditor stood, thin smile on his narrow face. Church council feels it's time to address certain concerns. Booker's voice carried false sympathy. Brother Morrow has taken in a woman of questionable virtue, a bastard child, living under scandalous conditions that mock God's holy institution of marriage. Murmurs rippled through the congregation, some disapproving, some eager. We're calling for community accountability, Booker continued. Brother Morrow, please stand and explain your household situation. Every eye turned. Caleb rose slowly, legs unsteady. His mouth went dry. Well, Booker prompted. The words formed without thought. The wrong words. Miss Hayes is my employee. Temporary arrangement. She'll move to her own property by summer. Employee, temporary. The lie tasted like ash, like betrayal. He saw Mrs. Dale in the third row, eyes downcast, saw young mothers clutching their children, saw the silence that meant compliance. Glad to hear it, Booker said. Satisfaction dripping. Wouldn't want misunderstandings. Cain nodded. Meeting adjourned. Let us pray. Caleb didn't stay for the prayer. Walked out into spring rain, his suit already soaked by the time he reached his horse. At the church window, hidden behind the curtain, Eliza Hayes stood with Emma in her arms. She'd come after all, heard every word. Employee, temporary. She turned away before he could see her face. But Moses, waiting with the wagon, saw everything. Boss, don't! Caleb swung into the saddle, rode home alone through the rain. The word coward beating in time with his horse's hooves. He found Moses in the barn that night. Bottle half empty beside him, whiskey Caleb kept for winter snake bites and summer regrets. She gone? Caleb asked. Moses didn't look up. Packed before sundown. Left a note. The paper sat on the workbench. Caleb unfolded it with shaking hands. I won't be your shame. The cabin is yours again. The Emma's baby blanket lay folded beside it. The cradle in the cabin would be empty again, like it had been for 3 years, like it would be forever. Caleb collapsed onto a hay bale, head in his hands. The first tears in 3 years came slow, then all at once. You just broke that woman's heart to save your reputation, Moses said quietly. I had to. You had to stand up. Like you didn't for Sarah when her family called her barren. Like you didn't when folks whispered she was cursed. You hid then. You're hiding now. Moses took a long drink. I didn't fight for my freedom just to watch you give yours away for nothing. Caleb looked up, eyes burning. What am I supposed to do? What Sarah would have wanted? What Eliza deserves? Moses stood, swayed slightly. Live like you got something worth losing. Because you do. And she's walking away right now. The grave had no answers, but the living still had a chance. Dawn found Caleb at the hillside cemetery. Sarah's headstone, simple granite with her name and dates. Wildflowers he'd planted 3 springs ago were blooming again, purple and gold. She'd loved them. He knelt in the dew-wet grass. I let you die alone, he said aloud, voice rough from crying. Rode for the doctor. Told you I'd be back before the baby came. But I was too late. Too slow. And I've spent 3 years punishing myself. Thinking if I just stayed dead inside, that would be penance enough. Wind moved through the pines. Somewhere. A meadowlark sang, Now there's Eliza and Emma. And I'm so damn scared of losing them too. So scared I already pushed them away. He pressed his palm to the cold stone. Tell me what to do. Sarah. The wind shifted, brought the smell of rain and new grass. And with it, a memory Sarah in bed, fever bright, gripping his hand with the last of her strength. Don't you dare stop living. Caleb Morrow. Those were her final words. He'd forgotten, or buried them so deep they couldn't hurt. Hoofbeats approached. Moses, leading Caleb's mare. The old man dismounted, stood silent a moment, then said, She's on foot. Baby strapped to her back. 2-hour lead, heading east. Caleb looked up. Why didn't you stop her? I ain't her man. You are if you claim it. Caleb stood, legs steadier now. He swung into the saddle, looked back once at the grave. I'm gonna live now. Sarah, like you wanted. Hope you're at peace with that. He rode 2 miles out. He found her on the muddy road. She walked bent under the weight of her pack and the baby sling, each step determination wrapped in exhaustion. Caleb galloped ahead, dismounted, blocked her path. I'm a coward and a fool, he said, breathless. Eliza didn't stop walking. I know. He caught her arm gently. She stopped. Rain started falling again, soft and steady. But I love you, Caleb said, and I'll tell every soul in that town if you'll let me. Her eyes gray as the storm clouds filled with tears. They'll destroy you. They already did. You put me back together, Emma wailed between them, sensing her mother's distress. Caleb reached out, pulled them both into his arms, held them like he should have held them from the start, like he'd never let go again. Marry me, he said against Eliza's hair. Not for appearance, not for the town, for real. Because I want to wake up every day and choose you. Choose this life. You don't owe me, I owe myself, a life with you. She nodded against his chest, body shaking with sobs or laughter or both. Rain soaked them through. His mare stood patient, reins trailing. I'm going to stand in front of that whole church, Caleb said, and tell them you're mine and I'm yours. And if they don't like it, they can hush. Eliza looked up, touched his face. Just take us home first. So he did. Lifted her and Emma onto the horse. Walked beside them through the rain. Home was 7 miles. They took every step together, and when they reached the ranch, Moses stood on the porch, grinning like he'd won a bet with God himself. The rancher walked through those church doors like he was walking through fire. Next Sunday. Clear sky, air warm with spring, every pew packed. Booker sat front row, smug. Preacher Kane stood at the pulpit, mid-sermon about faithfulness. The doors banged open. Caleb entered first, Eliza beside him, Emma in her arms. Moses 1 step behind. Sunday best. Rifle conspicuously absent, but his presence a statement nonetheless. Gasps rippled through the congregation. Kane stopped mid-sentence. Caleb walked down the center aisle, boots echoing on wood floors. Eliza held her head high, no shame, no apology. They stopped at the front. Caleb turned to face the crowd. I'm here to make things right, he said, voice steady, carrying. I love this woman. I'm asking her to marry me in front of all of you. Judge me for it if you must. But know this, she's more righteous than any soul in this room, including mine. Booker shot to his feet. She's a... Say it. Caleb cut him off, voice hard as iron. Call her what you called her at that auction you arranged. The one you sat front row for, bidding on a woman who'd just given birth. Go ahead. Say it in God's house. Booker's face went purple. He lunged. Moses stepped between them, didn't touch the man, just stood there, immovable. Booker stumbled back into his pew. Silence. Heavy. Waiting. Then a chair scraped. Mrs. Dale stood, hands trembling. I was silent when she needed help. When she stood on that block bleeding, I looked away. Her voice cracked. I won't be silent now. Another woman stood. Rancher's wife. 3 children clinging to her skirts. Then a young mother. Then an old widow. 6 women standing. Preacher Cain looked at them. At Caleb. At Eliza holding that baby with all the fierce love mothers know. His face softened. Miss Hayes, Cain said quietly, do you consent to marry this man? Eliza's voice rang clear. I consent to a man who chose me when it cost him everything, who stood when others sat. Yes, I consent. Cain nodded slowly. Then I believe God's grace is bigger than our judgment. He looked at the congregation. Anyone object to this union? Speak now. Booker stood again, mouth open. Samuel Booker. Mrs. Dale said sharply. You sit down, or so help me, I'll tell this whole church how you foreclosed on the Hayes property before. Benjamin's body was cold. Booker sat. Cain's smiled, first genuine smile Caleb had ever seen on the man. Then by the authority vested in me, I'll marry you, today, if you wish. Today, Caleb said. Looked at Eliza. Right now. Moses produced a ring, simple gold, sized for her hand. Caleb slipped it on her finger. She produced 1 2-braided horsehair, the kind she'd learned to make from Moses. Slipped it onto Caleb's rough palm. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Emma chose that moment to laugh bright baby sound in the silent church. Then Emma reached for Caleb. Chubby arms extended. He took her, held her close, kissed her downy head. Applause started slow, then grew, hesitant at first, then stronger. Not everyone Booker stormed out, coat flapping, but enough to matter. Outside, rain clouds broke. Sunlight poured through the stained glass, painting them all in color, for the first time in 3 years. Caleb Morrow felt like he was standing in grace. The cabin stood finished, but no longer empty. 2 months later, May in full bloom. The ranch spread green and gold under warm sun. Wildflowers covered the hills, purple lupine, yellow arrowleaf, Indian paintbrush red as sunset. Caleb and Eliza worked the garden together. She planted carrots and beans. He turned soil, built trellises for climbing peas. Emma sat in the grass, pulling dandelions, trying to eat them. She'd be walking soon, already took wobbly steps holding furniture. Moses hammered in the barn, building an addition to the main house, a proper nursery, maybe siblings for Emma someday. If God was willing, Mrs. Dale visited weekly now, bringing preserves, apologizing in the language of service. Other women came too, learned midwifery from Eliza, who'd learned it by necessity. The town was healing. Slowly, some wounds took time. Booker had left disgraced. Debts unpaid. No one spoke his name. Some silences were blessings. Afternoon, they walked to the cemetery. All 4, Caleb, Eliza, Moses, Emma in a sling, carried a sapling apple tree, roots wrapped in burlap. At Sarah's grave, they dug together, planted the tree beside the headstone. Caleb pressed soil firm around the roots, poured water from a canteen. She'll have shade now, Eliza said softly, and blossoms in spring. Moses nodded. Good tree. Strong stock, last 100 years. Caleb stood, dirt on his hands and knees, looked at the stone. Thank you for teaching me I could love more than once. Eliza knelt, placed a small river stone beside the headstone. She'd carved Emma's birth date into it, unpracticed but clear. She's part of this family too. They stood in silence. Meadowlarks called. Wind moved through new leaves. Then they walked home. Evening found them on the porch. Emma asleep in the cradle, the one from Sarah's cabin. Now in their bedroom. No longer empty. Caleb rocked it gently with his boot. Moses built a walkway, Eliza said, gesturing to the covered path connecting cabin to main house. Says traveling families can use the cabin now. Folks who need a safe place. Good idea. Caleb took her hand. Make sure no one has to stand on an auction block again. We'll try. The sun set gold and orange, painting everything in honey light. Moses emerged from the barn, saw them sitting together, waved, headed to his own cottage, whistling that old freedom song. You look happy, Eliza said. Caleb considered. I look like I'm living. There's a difference. Is there? Living takes work. Happiness is the grace you get for doing it. He pulled her close, kissed her temple. I'm grateful for both. Emma stirred, made little sleeping sounds. Caleb rocked the cradle. Eliza leaned against him. Behind them, the main house glowed with lamplight. Ahead, fields stretched green to the tree line. Above, stars began appearing, first Venus, then the pole star, then thousands more. Caleb spoke quiet. To the evening or the stars or the woman beside him. Love doesn't erase the past. It builds beside it, plants roots in the same soil. And sometimes, if you're blessed, it blooms twice. Eliza took his hand. We're blessed then. Yes, ma'am, we are. They sat until full dark, watching the world turn gentle. Behind them, the cabin windows glowed warm. A place of refuge now, of second chances. Tomorrow, there'd be work fences to mend, animals to tend, a garden to weed. There'd be town trips and gossip, neighbors and weather, all the beautiful, ordinary struggle of living. But tonight, they rested, and that was enough.